All right. Hydrate, hydrate. Okay. Here we go. Hey guys, it's Tiffany, and I am back with another episode of Meet the Trainers. Today we have a very familiar face to come back and meet you once again. Everybody knows Caleb, and if you don't know Caleb, I'm sure you've heard about Caleb. And if you haven't heard about Caleb, I'm sure you've gotten Caleb's advice, which is to hydrate.
Drink water. Yeah.
Always drink water. But he'll talk more about that, I'm sure. First, though, Caleb, for folks who haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, please tell us all who you are.
Sure. My name is Caleb Causey. I'm the owner and director of training for Lone Star Medics. Lone Star Medics is a field and tactical medical training company that we and I learned here recently I have to start saying and consulting services provider, service provider. So people don't want to take the class, but they just want to know which first aid kit to buy. Okay, then fine. Here's my consulting fee. Pay me, and then I'll tell you which one to buy. So it's working out really nice. But no, so but yeah, we've a little bit my background. Is that where?
Sure,
So
go
I
for it.
sure. I've been in business now, teaching for let's see, March coming up in March will make 13 years. That's kind of spooky. I still feel like a rookie instructor, uh, a lot, a lot of the time. I'm still making it up as I go, and I haven't quite figured it out yet. But I am fortunate that I do get to travel around the U.S. Providing the medical classes for folks to different walks of life, depending on what you want to learn. What contextual first aid training is one way to look at it. Not just first aid on steroids, but context and applicability are big keywords with me in the training that we offer and the coursework that I offer. It's
Absolutely.
so if and that's a big thing. Hence why we've got a handful of classes listed on the website. But my background is I've been a medic involved with field or tactical medicine for, let's just say over 20 years. Um, I stopped counting. I don't think it matters anymore. But started off actually in high school as one of the dorky Explorer kids, part of the Explorer Post, riding out with the ambulance crews in Fort Worth, Texas. And then I ended up in the Army, did 4 years of active duty as a combat medic, the couple deployments to the Balkans, got out, got on with the fire department, with the local fire department, spent 6 years there. During that time, we were responding to 911 calls and non-emergency calls as well to some degree. But short distance transports, like from go pick up at the nursing home, take to the downtown hospital, but mainly 911 response and at the firehouse, and then also finagle my way more or less on the SWAT team, and spent 6 years with the SWAT team, not as a peace officer, but as their SWAT medic. And gosh, this was 2008, 2009, at the end of '08. Went down to College Station, Texas to better myself, get my paramedic patch, and ended up getting recruited to come back after I made it through the course to teach. They recruited me to be an adjunct instructor. And came back, some buddies at the shooting range said, "Hey, you need to teach us a first aid class now that you're a big shot instructor." And I said, "Okay." And pulled an 8-hour class out of my hat, which is now, oddly enough, our range response class. And they said, "This is amazing, and you should do this full time." And I thought they were just messing with me,
Nope.
because none your friends don't do that, because the class is full of my buddies, right? Your shooting buddies. And they're like, "Yeah, you should do this full time. You're really good at it." I was like, "Okay, sure." And they're like, "We weren't really serious." So next thing here
Lone
I am
Star Medics
teaching
was
around the world.
born.
Yeah, Lone Star
Nice.
Medics is born. So,
That's awesome.
so,
Well,
but yeah, and then presenting at TacCon now this, and it kills me to even say, "Hey, have I forgotten how many times I've presented?" Because if I'm not haven't presented at TacCon, I've at least try to attend as much as I can.
mm-hmm.
And because earlier on it was, Tom's, y'all are good about inviting other instructors of the same discipline, but several other instructor, and medical is no different. Dr. Sherman House is going to be there, I assume, I hope.
Yep, yep, he will be.
So there's other medical professionals out there, which is great. Even, John Murphy, he presents some medical block in his uh, street
Street
encounter
encounter skills.
skills class. Yes,
Yep.
he needs to add more words to it, um, more syllables for that Marine. But so it's, the medical's catching on, but I'm very humbled every year when I get that email. In fact, I think you guys know you have to send me that email or I don't think I'm invited.
Yes.
No, I'm humbled every year to come out to TacCon and present to everybody. It's definitely the highlight of the year for me.
Well, I will say that that is one of my favorite traits of yours, Caleb, your humility, which is, not not very common among high level instructors, national instructors like yourself. It's really easy to let the ego swell, and you have not done that. So that just makes you that much more awesome as a person. And it makes me even more excited to tell everybody about your not one but two
Oh,
medical blocks that you're presenting at TacCon this year. So the
see,
first
oh, I
one,
didn't even know I was going to do two. I thought, oh, I get to teach a class, and
nope,
here I am,
you
get to teach
submitted
two.
two and you're teaching two.
Okay.
So the first class is EDC medical gear. So tell us what that class will entail.
I was thinking how I was going to answer that question when you asked me that tonight. Um, the short answer is basically think of this, guys, as a holster class for your everyday carry medical gear.
Hmm. Yeah.
Literally, that's it. It's so for us as shooters, I really want people to think of your medical equipment because everybody wants to know, hey, what medical equipment do I carry? What do I carry?
Hmm.
Just like,
Hmm.
I don't know, new shooters ask, what gun should I get? Well, what are you going to be
Right.
doing with it? Same, there's a
Exactly.
lot of similarities between our defensive self-defense tools and our medical tools, and
Yeah,
in
and
the
it's
same kind
really
of principles.
common. It's really common that shooters and regular everyday carriers don't put nearly as much thought into how or what they're going to carry for medical gear as they do for their shooting gear. So, I wish I could come to the
No,
class.
there's it's yeah, it's and there's a lot to that. It's context.
Hmm.
So it's like, well, I work in a non-permissive environment. I risk my job if I carry a firearm to work. Okay, well, I've been through some pretty significant, and I'm not. This is me trying not to sound egotistical. Uh, um, I've been through some pretty strict security checkpoints, to include the Pentagon. You know, what were you doing at the Pentagon, Caleb? That's a need to know basis. um,
And I have photos to prove it. He has definitely been in the Pentagon.
Yeah, I have. Oh, that one photo with me on the, yeah, I forgot about
That's
the
a
funny one.
classic. Yeah.
Yeah, once I took that, everybody else thought that's a good idea. We'll take a photo too, and then they got in trouble. But no, but at the Pentagon, and that was pretty. That was like literally about an hour and a half to get through this checkpoint. And that wasn't like I was waiting in line. That was just them doing background checks, questions. There's involved. But so when people say, "Well, I can't carry medical," I'm like, "Okay, what are you working in? Like, do you have to wear like a Tyvek suit in a clean room, or are you wearing a level A biohazard suit? What? Even then, you can still have it staged in there, man." So there's, but the idea of that class is just basically, hey, if I'm, driving to work, driving around town, going about my normal day, whatever that activity may be, uh, then how do I carry? What do I carry? How do I carry it?
Hmm.
So we're not going to go so much on the skills portion of it. It's going to be more gear related because everybody likes gear. Everybody wants the whoopee.
That's
Everybody
right.
wants that overnight pill. Can I go out and buy it and then I feel safer?
Yeah. Well,
So
so that first class is about the gear, but your second class is about the skills. And your second class is called Medical Response on the Range. I'll never forget the pitch that you made for this class at our instructor dinner years and years ago. Do you remember that? It was
I
great.
I do, and I did. I know we want to make these videos quick, but I do remember that because Tom totally put me on the spot that evening at the instructor dinner because there's two instructor dinners. In fact, my highlight of, and I'll tell everybody because they may not know about this. The coolest part about TacCon is being a guest presenter and then going to the instructor's dinner, and that to me that's the roundtable discussion of literally King Arthur's invited you to the roundtable to as a night to talk about what's working in our industry, what's not. And the first time I was invited to that table back in Tulsa, um, there's everybody surrounded the big names of people I've read their articles since I was a kid,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm sitting next to him, and it's like, well, Moss, what do you think about weapon mounted lights? And he gets up and just Shakespeare's a 20-second blurb, and like, Caleb, what do you think? And I'm like, flashlights are good. You can see in the dark with them. And Tom like wanted to rip my head. He's like, no, sir, everybody here has to say something. And I was so mortified. I had no idea what to say. I'm not a firearms instructor. I was like, flashlights are good. They help you see in the dark. And so,
So
you know,
this is the part that Caleb left out of his introduction. He also does stand up comedy on the side.
yeah,
he,
I'm not very good at it.
he actually Caleb mentioned Sherman House, and it's weird that our two medical guys are also two of the funniest guys at TacCon. So you won't spend much time with Caleb without laughing your
Giggling
behind off because he's
with or at
always.
me. But no, but fast forwarding to it, it was a discussion, and Tom said, "Hey, as professional firearms instructors, what do we kind of need to know on the range medical wise?" And I looked over, and Greg Ellerfritz and some other folks, and Craig and everybody were all kind of giggling at me, like, "Ha ha, Tom got him! Look at him! Caleb's terrified." And he was like, "They're not. He's not terrified of speaking in front of people. He's just terrified because he doesn't know what answer to give them right off the top of his head." So I pulled a rabbit out of my hat, and fast forward to again here again, and it's been well received every year. Apparently, almost not every year we presented this material. I think New Orleans was the first time for me to present the range response portion of it. So this has been only a third time actually, and the audience keeps growing, and I'm happy to see that. The first time I think there's three people, including you, when you walked over to take photos. Uh, you're like, I'll just take a wide zoom. I'll just zoom in for Caleb. Everybody else has sold out class. I've got two people.
No,
But
but it
no,
has,
we
you're right, it has grown every year, which is good to see because we have a larger audience of instructors at TacCon.
mhm.
And so I'm hopeful that people are starting to realize, if you're teaching shooting classes, you might need to know this stuff.
The medical, yeah, it's kind of geared for firearms instructors or folks that spend any amount of time on the range, RSOs, anything like that, AIs. Just, hey, what do we need to be thinking about before we get to the range, during the range, if there's a medical emergency of anything? Everybody thinks gunshot wounds,
I was just gonna
and
say
that's
that.
simple. It's the
That's
heat
the.
exhaustion, it's the
Mhm,
heat stroke,
mhm,
it's they get stung by a bee and it turns out they're severely allergic to it. They
mhm,
have a stroke or a heart attack. How many of you are shooting buddies are over the age of 45,
yeah.
35 according to American Heart Association? If you're an American male over the age of 35, you're considered high risk for heart attack. That's a few of you watching.
Yeah.
Okay,
And if you
so
think, a little personal aside there, if you think that this is outside the realm of possibility, I know a firearms instructor personally who has had someone have a fatal heart attack on the range. Had nothing to do with shooting or gunshots or anything
nope.
like that. It was just his time to go. And that instructor will be at TACON. So, this is not anything that Caleb just dreams about and likes to talk about in a vacuum. These are real possibilities, right, Caleb?
There's been two or three that I know of, instructors that have had cardiovascular events, not while they're teaching on the range, but and so it's there.
Mm-hmm.
We're not immune to it. And so we'll talk about that sort of thing, what to do during the emergency, how to corral what do we do with crowd management of the other, if you've got students on the range or everybody on the line, what do you do? Pros and cons. Well, we'll just have them holster up. Well, wait a minute, time out. Sounds good here, looks good there, but in reality, that may not be the best option. So we're not going to go down there. It's a 10-hour class. We're not going to try to cram 10 hours into whatever time slot you give me. But it's like, hey, here's 3 or 4 bullet points we need to talk on to really drive home the point of, hey, here's what we need to do on the range before, during, and after.
Nice. That sounds awesome. So, guys, if you want to catch Caleb Causey of Lone Star Medics at TacCon, his blocks are EDC medical gear and medical response on the range. Either one or both would be great for anybody who spends any time either on the range or just out in everyday life where, things happen, right?
Absolutely.
Caleb, it is always a pleasure talking to you, my friend. And please give the little one a great big hug and give your better half a great big hug as well. I'm hoping to see all three of you at TacCon. I know that Lisa's probably not going to be there, but that makes me.
She's about 3 feet behind me, wondering how that's going to go down right now. So
Okay. Tell her, please come. Please come. I want to see
she
her.
will be unavailable. She'll be at a family function and represent. And we'll be thinking of everybody and miss everybody.
All right. Well, we'll miss her too. So I suppose we'll have to settle for you, Caleb. You'll do. Thank you so much, my friend. I will see you in Dallas. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Tiffany.